Okay, you guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeneth Blackert,
And I'm Bianca Reina.
and this is the Haute Hustle Morning Show. Today, we're talking with Maisy Bristol. She's an astrologer and a really, really good one.
Uh-huh.
And we had a recent conversation, and this week we're really just bringing back the best of the best. So I hope you're ready to really get your astrology on with one of our favorites and our best.
Yes. So hi everyone. Good morning. I see Valentina said hello. She says it's a rainy day in Canada. And Dana says hi everyone. So hello everybody. We are just, one of the things about having an astrology or astrologer on is the kind of the need to feel like there's so much to talk about when it comes to space weather news. And of course, they know best as far as, and I don't really do astrology in the space weather news, but I also love to include the things that are going on around us. And so it'd be really fun to have her kind of chime in and talk about some of the changes that are going on.
Hmm.
With that, a little segue in today's Mystic Space Weather News. Solar storms are driving farmers crazy. Isn't that
That's
great? Isn't that
funny.
cool? It says planting season is a hectic time for farmers, but for many, it means working through the night using GPS guided tractors to plant thousands of acres of short period of time. But this time, the season was in full swing in May, and it was also during the time of that big solar storm. So we reported on that a lot. And then it said that some of the farmers were saying, like, our tractors were acting like they were possessed by demons. A space weather, as they reported to spaceweather.com, is it also says that Aurora Chaser said that they had to help family farms out in northern Minnesota. And one person says, "All my cousins called me during May 10th storm just to tell me that my Aurora was driving them crazy while they were planting their farms." And so basically, all of the things that are like hooked up to the GPS and everything like that was guided by satellites were getting veering off track. They were stopping. They were going off course. They were cutting the wrong things. So again, you see how just on a smaller scale, how that May storm really messes with the GPS and satellite system. Imagine if we had a bigger, and I'm not trying to put this out there, but bigger CMEs or Earth directing coronal mass ejections that would also cause more of that headache and havoc. And so that's the reason why we would have some unrest, if you will. So one of those things that I always say is just be prepared, always have a backup plan to maybe your cell phones and to just regular GPS guidance systems. Maybe you have like a regular, AM, FM radio that you could turn on and connect with people, like, or just get more information if something ever like that happens. Not to try to be a prepper or anything, but just always have something ready and available because CMEs are on full effect right now. They are. Yes, we have some more solar storms. We're still in that peak, in that solar storm peak right now. And so since the Earth is some of the solar storms are Earth facing, we will get some of those higher X2. And we saw one just the other day, X-class solar flares. And so those are the ones that really create that havoc and can really mess with GPS systems. One more thing I wanted to read from Mystic Space Weather News is
I'm like, I have so much to say today.
I'm excited. We'll check in with you in a second. And she says massive, okay, so massive DNA upgrades. This is from Sparks of Divine Light on Instagram. She says massive body upgrades. And this is all in caps, y'all. So pretty much she's trying to get a point across, right? The Ascension systems are upgrading the DNA system and co-creating the frequency in the body to align with the vibration of the new energy for 2025. She says, my fractal parts and ancient coding is being developed in the body and activating new energies into the coding system. We've been talking a lot about this, right? The DNA upgrades. Yeah. The DNA upgrades also come in the form of these CMEs and these, the blast from the earth. We're being upgraded as the earth, as the sun, sorry, the blast from the blast from the sun, as the sun is just peering down with so much light and changing and really upgrading our DNA. And it also says, particularly in the nervous system, this is the reset button for many who haven't had the physical upgrades yet. This is allowing the full integration of the divine system to align the energy to create a new wave of leaders. Woohoo! Rest. Aren't we always saying that? Hydrate.
Hydrate anyway.
Yeah.
We don't need this information.
You don't need this information to remind you. Take the energy and start listening to the body. You're expanding into the heart-centered and aligning into this 5D frequency. And so if you are feeling a little crazy, if you are feeling tired, rest, if you're just feeling out of sorts and then you feel like you're stopping starting, that is, again, all part of the solar maximum. It's all been documented and science shows it. So just know that you're not alone. There you go. That's what I got from Mystic's Space Weather News.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Are we still the third rock from the sun if Pluto is no longer a planet?
Oh gosh. So here's the funny part.
What's up with that?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many better questions that we could be exploring.
We don't have to go there.
I feel like
when you were talking about
I feel like this is the equivalent of like
you're like,
I feel like this is the equivalent of Jessica Simpson when she was like, is the tuna fish the chicken of the sea? She got put on blast, so I'm not gonna even go there. And I'm not trying to get put on blast.
You guys, as some of you know that have been hanging around, I've recently gotten 2 new kittens, and I was sharing with the team yesterday that I was meditating in the morning, and when the meditation was like, your heart, connect to your heart, it's Joe Dispenza who echoes out. And all of a sudden, when I'm like really, really into this, like I am nowhere and nothing, and all of a sudden, this little cat, like just about this big, comes and like makes this tiny little circle right at my heart and just starts purring like crazy.
So the cat laid on you and just like,
Yeah. And I was just, oh my gosh, it was just such a moment. And I came out in tears and told my husband, I said, this is just a little validation that something is happening here during these meditations, right? That they can sense this.
Yes.
And I just thought it was just the coolest freaking thing in the
I
world.
do think so. Dana says cats love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean,
do that.
it's makes it really clear that this is a fifth dimensional energy that they can sense beyond the body. I mean, how many times have people said that, your body is in you, you are not in your body.
Yes.
And right?
Yes.
And I think the more and more we have these conversations, it becomes so, so clear that it's even way beyond even your aura, that you are just you can be out as far as you want to go. I just think it's so freaking cool.
Yes.
And I think the more that I do this work and you can validate it in your world, nothing ever happens by accident.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly is guided, even through quote accidents. I really feel like those are moments when you are supposed to stop and look and become aware of like, I lost my present moment. I was daydreaming. No, go so many different ways.
Yeah, no,
but it
you're
could
on to
also
it.
be you're just on the wrong path entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring that up. And you've been gone and had a Miami trip. We want to talk about that.
I did. And what it's really cool about the trip is that I got the opportunity to be with girlfriends and we did the whole spa and self-care thing and
Fun.
dressed up and had lovely dinners. And really just a time, all of us are moms, and so really a time for us to like just get away and laugh and just be silly and really just love on ourselves for a little bit. But what I thought was really cool was that there was so much, and not because I was there per se, but because all of my friends are all talking a lot more spirituality, like a lot more than they ever had. And it's not just with me, it's just how they are operating nowadays. Like they're talking about like their lives and how they brought spirituality in and how they approach different things, especially when it comes to like uh one of the things that really stood out to me was sometimes the like Chiron, right? The wounded healer. That whole notion of the healer being more empathic and taking on some of these other energies.
Yeah.
And I just thought that that might be something that we could bring into the show again and talk about how we can send stuff to the light, that we're really not having to, right. It can be super simple. One of the speakers that we had on was Karen Tobiasen, and she basically says with our new DNA upgrades, we can do this super fast. We don't have to go back to the trauma and drama and relive and hash out what happened to us. We simply can know that if we're having some off thoughts, that they're not ours, we can send them to the light, send it to the light. And I know it sounds really simple, but maybe sometimes when you're taking on the stress of everyone else's, like during the holidays, that might be an easy reminder. Right. That might be something that we could easily just, okay, sending this to the light, go to the light. But
Praise God, go to the light.
Go with yourself. That way you're not taking on that energy and you can just, you know, kind of just cut the cords as well. So I just thought that was a really fun little PSA. But other than that, it was so fun and great to have that time. And then we all kind of laughed because it's like as soon as we had that time, then it was like, I'm ready to get back to, you know, the kids, the family, like that kind of thing. It's, you know, you have that little bit of space and you miss them. Like, you're like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. No, usually I miss people before I even leave. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I like my life. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel like even this year, I mean, this show has made it more awesome.
Oh, sure.
Right. From the things we've learned. I mean, I was thinking back to our show a little bit ago and how much I have changed just this year because of the show. And there's also been things that I've said I was going to do that I haven't continued to do.
Oh, like
Test my home.
oh yeah.
I would like to do that still. Sure. It just is so much extra effort that I really, I really like, no, this is my main focus. I really have to stay in this one line. I also, the sun thing that Alyssa, was it Alyssa?
Alyssa.
Yeah, Alyssa Rushton, she talked about, I wanted to really just say, I'm going to continue to do that. And it just didn't really work into my schedule when
I do it
did it.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but I do have to say I'm kind of guilty. Like I'm like, do I get up and go do that or do I sleep in a couple extra minutes?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you know that it can really benefit.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe not beat ourselves up, maybe like every other day or maybe every third day. Like as long as we're
like
working it into the schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
better than no and then saying, I didn't do it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Valentina, based upon the conversation we were saying earlier, brushing the garbage off of you is a great idea. Be gone.
Yeah.
She said with exclamation point.
Yeah. I heard a speaker once say, you know, you take a shower every day or every couple of days. Why wouldn't you like do some work to brush off the psychic debris?
Yes.
It's like, yeah. I think that people are feeling sometimes at the beginning of your awakening, you feel that you're being hurt or attacked or demons are coming in. And as we grow, we realize, wait, we have the power.
Yeah.
We have the choice. We're in the body.
Yes.
And this is our domain.
Yes.
And you don't get to attack me. You don't get to hurt me. You don't get to make me suffer.
Yeah.
Right. You don't, you don't have that choice or that possibility. And I think once you really acknowledge that and acknowledge yourself and the power and the greatness and the joy of it all,
Yes.
you really go, okay, I have it. I can be this, and I am a no entity zone. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yep, yep. And I love that you brought that up, Jenith, because we had talked a little bit about that,
Mhm.
and that power that you give yourself back is, not to use the word empowering, but it is everything and has changed my life so much.
Mhm.
I know whenever I realized that and really got it in my bones that I'm the person that's here having the human experience, and this is a no entity zone. You don't get to come up in here in my space.
Mhm.
And I really owned it.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I put white light over it. Sometimes I'm like, send it to the light.
Yeah.
Um, I know that I am so wholly protected because, and not that I'm an infinite being, not that I need protection, but that I imagine and vision, I know that I am.
Mhm.
Period.
Yeah.
Like I'm just reminded, and maybe just because we're humans, we have so much fear that we do have that,
Yeah.
that reminding of ourselves is needed.
Yeah.
But I know that for me, it was a game changer. Like even
Oh,
in the show, even though the last year I've become so much more empowered by that.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to check with Macy and see where she would
Sure.
be? 'Cause I didn't see her hop on the line
Okay.
yet. And while one of the things that brought up while you're doing that
Hmm.
was, uh, why do I feel that some people go out of their way to prove how spiritual they are.
Mm.
And and I don't know what that is necessarily, but so then they've got all these rituals. She just popped on.
Okay, good.
And then they've got all these rituals that they have to do in order to just be okay with life.
Mm.
And I'm inviting you to a world where what if you don't have to even do anything other than invite in a light energy to change it,
And
right? Send it to the light, ask
yes,
questions.
yes.
Yeah,
Create more possibilities.
yeah.
Yes.
Occasionally get your a massage.
Yeah.
All right, I'm bringing her on. Hey, Macy, you're muted.
Hi. I hadn't said anything yet. Hi.
We're
Morning.
really excited to have this conversation
Yeah,
because I have a
astrology.
lot of questions. And now that I have a little bit more information than our first our first conversation where I like almost didn't
Right.
know what to ask. I'm like, what's a house?
Yeah, I
Uh,
know. I'm glad that we can meet up again so that so we can get a little deeper into astrology and
Definitely.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I,
I know I
I
brought up a lot of stuff originally, like
no, it's
throwing out
good.
terms and things and I'm sure it was a lot of information all at once, so.
Yeah. Well, when I was looking up Chiron yesterday and doing and reading about it, really Chiron is the wounded healer,
Yep.
that there's words around that. And then my brain went in 101 different directions on what that meant. And I was wondering if we could start this conversation there as what is Chiron and really what is this meaning of the wounded healer and how can it support us, I guess would be the third question, although I think that's going to run a little bit deeper.
Yes, we can cover all of those one by one. Um, so Chiron is an asteroid, and it is associated with this archetype of being the wounded healer. In Greek mythology, Chiron was a centaur, and he centaurs were usually, brutes, and he was kind of integrated into this like royal system with the gods and the goddesses, and he somehow became sort of more of an elevated brute among the other centaurs who are, still out there in the wild, running free and crazy. So he ended up actually coming into this world feeling a little bit abandoned and unknown, and so he had wounding in his own respect. But what ended up happening was that he got hit with a poisoned arrow And it was since he's a demigod, he couldn't die. So he was just wounded and had to carry this wounding and ended up becoming a healer for other people. So that's where the term comes from, the wounded healer. So he was able to heal others without healing himself. And that was his, I guess, not downfall, but his destiny.
Yeah, or
And
suffering.
what he was fated to work with. And I think it just, yeah, it does denote a bit of what humanity is, which is like partial suffering and partial healing. And we all carry something that we continue to suffer from, you know. What Chiron represents is this like shame narrative that we carry with us from childhood into adulthood. And that we're sort of challenged to unlearn or uncondition ourselves from believing. And the more that you work on that, the easier it is to like start making healthier choices for yourself and like stop the self-sabotage and all that stuff, but you still carry it with you. So regardless of how much you heal yourself, like it is still a part of you. And I think part of what Chiron is both accepting that and like accepting it and working with it at the same time. So it is part of you.
So would we say that that would even then be flipped and become actually his gift if he, you know, maybe he was wounded, but the gift was that he could heal?
Right. And so a lot of what Chiron represents is like that shame narrative or whatever the narrative is that you carry is actually something you likely already give to other people or like have an innate ability to reach people in that way. Everyone has wounding in a different way, of course. So your specific wounding can really help highlight other people who mirror that for you. And we do this automatically. This is something that like we naturally gravitate toward. But understanding what the narrative is and like how it translates into our personal life can help us tap into that gift a little bit more and also find healing. This is funny because you brought it up and I just did this in the workshop or in my program, this specific workshop on Chiron of the gift. So I actually have this phrase pointed out in this book.
Wow.
So I think I might read it actually.
Yes,
yeah,
please do.
perfect
timing.
Love this.
We didn't plan this, by the way.
Love
This is
divine guidance. Love it so much.
Happened. So this book is by Melanie Reinhardt, and she is like the Chiron leader. That she's an astrologer who's like devoted her life to Chiron, much like I assume I will be doing with my
it seems
life.
that way, right?
It is. I'm just like I've become a Chiron nerd, absolutely. So
love it.
Anyway, I read this passage to the group the other day. It kind of explains this whole idea of Chiron being the wound and the gift. But she says Chiron symbolizes things that we can do for others, but which we may not be able to do for ourselves. And she says the mythological parallel for this is clear, as Chiron could not heal his own wounds in spite of being able to heal others. But she brings in some examples of how this might play out in the chart. For example, sometimes those with Chiron in aspect to Mercury, being the planet of communication and thought and smarts and intelligence, can bring order and clarity into any situation except their own thoughts. Everyone except themselves may consider them as intelligent and original in their thinking. And they might not, with Chiron in the first house, which represents our ego and our identity and our agency in the world. Many people feel they lack personal willpower, not realizing how strong they appear. Or a woman with Chiron conjunct Venus, which is the planet of beauty and love, had always felt she was ugly, though admired and envied by others for her beauty. So just a couple examples on this. She calls this Chiron gift portion like our blind spot, the Chiron blind spot, which I think is so apt. And relevant.
Yeah. Well, maybe we see how come
we can continue. Like I'm happy to answer questions.
Whenever I'm with you, I feel like I'm tongue-tied because it's almost like, a totally different space than we're usually in. So
Which is great. That means that there's so much here for us to explore and learn and be
a
with.
question I want to ask is, how do we apply this individually? Is there a way to apply it individually? Like, how does it help each of us here on planet Earth change, heal, grow, evolve? That I think that's the question that's kind of coming and reeling in my head.
Yeah, the ultimate goal here with all this information, because you're like, cool, what do I do
Yeah.
with that? I think the ultimate goal or ultimate realization that Chiron brings is once you do figure out your wound, you can figure out your gift. And once you realize what you're already doing, then you can apply those healing
Mhm.
aspects you're already giving to other people to yourself. And so there is some sort of
Uh-huh.
aspect
Uh-huh.
of self-love and self-worth that we can provide for ourselves, because at the end of the day, Chiron represents the childhood experience, right? And so at some point we were lacking something, and it's only until later, once we've learned how to heal, that we can give ourselves that thing that we were lacking before, that we're
Mhm.
already giving to other people. So there is some like reparenting kind of aspect to it, being your own mother, your own father, whatever you didn't have. And that's like the ultimate goal with Chiron, I
And
think.
that is something that you do in your particular work. What have you seen has some of the benefits of doing that type of integration and reparenting? Like, what are some of
Um,
the monumental changes that people can expect from, working on this particular?
yeah, honestly, like a lot of our habits and our patterns that we are not, uh, that we're like not unfamiliar with, that we're very familiar with, that we don't know how to change or how to stop,
Sure. Yeah.
stem from this rooted belief that we are either not worthy of something or not able to, like, or are lacking in some way. Like we are having that, have this like void that we need to fill. And by working on this, we realize that we've been carrying the agency to be able to do this all along.
Uh-huh.
And so it really helps people step into this zone of empowerment and self-worth, so that they can make different changes than, or different patterns like than they were already like rooted into. A lot of what we do is like so conditioned and so automatic at this point. We talk a lot about neuroscience and how the
Oh,
brain works, and
Which is
habits
great.
and
which is
things
what
like
we
that.
like to
Yes.
talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. So part of those neural pathways, were established like as early as age 5. Like,
Yeah.
so you've been in this routine on this same train track since then. And so part of the Chiron work is understanding that you have the power to do this on your own, that you have the power to give this to yourself. And then once you uplift yourself like that, we use like active or like science-backed tools to help you
Love
make the
that.
changes.
Got
So
it.
it is astrology based.
Yeah.
That's where we get to the root of the problem,
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
for like what you were brought into this world to understand or accomplish or do or whatever. And then we use those techniques to kind of help you go from point A to point B in a step-by-step process. It's a
Wow.
3-month program. So like
Very
over the
cool.
course of the 3 months, we meet 11 times, and then you have 1 week where it's just one-on-one with me. But there's a lot of contact with me, and there's a lot of like contact with the self. Even though it is a group program, it's very solo based, like this, everyone's journey is different. And
Sure.
what I've seen as a result of all this work has been so phenomenal. Like being able to really take people out of the perspective. I think part of what gets us stuck is that we don't know what to do. And so when we come into this program and we have different tactics and different methods of looking into the self, it opens up other doors that help
Hmm.
you remember certain things that you forgot about in childhood, or like
Yeah.
reconnect with those things in a different way. Because as a child, that's a normalized thing. And as an adult, you realize that probably shouldn't have happened that way, or wow, I would not have told my child that. Like very
Yeah.
interesting things would come up. Um, so yeah, what I've seen have been like immense changes. One of the ladies, I have a couple examples. I don't want to ramble on too much,
No,
but
go.
No, I
No,
love
we love
this.
these.
I love the examples because
Yeah.
it really breaks it down and helps people to really understand. It helps me to know, what's possible, right? Like
Right.
it
yeah,
really gets me into that, like, golly, that's so cool. I
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah, yeah, I have.
I often say I'm a dog with a bone when it comes to personal development. Like I want to get to the root of something. I mean, I may want to eat the entire bone kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Because I want to get to the root of things. I want like real change in this world. And it seems that this is a different way to go for people to really understand themselves for that real change to happen.
right. And I personally have got a lot of Aquarius in my chart. I've
Mhm.
got Mercury in Aquarius in my chart. I am very to the point and very
Ugh,
straightforward.
love it.
I don't like fluff. I don't
Yeah.
like anything half-assed. My Chiron placement is in the sixth house of like work, so I'm always overcompensating for something. So everything that I do is like 150% effort, and then also like to the point and very
Mhm.
direct. So
Nice.
so yeah, a lot of this program is really just like packed with information and helping you get straight to like what you need to know. Starting
Mhm.
on day one, as soon as you sign up, you get a reading from
Mhm.
me, and that's
Yeah.
to like kind of map out what you should be thinking about over the course
Well,
of the 3 months.
let's talk about what an experience of a reading with you looks like. If I were
Yeah,
to come in and have a reading with you, you would probably ask for my birth date and other things like that, right? And then you go through like what things mean to them, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, let's talk about this
so
because I have no idea. I'm like, I'm curious about this topic, but at the same time, I'm like, what should I expect with this?
yeah, so a birth chart reading is different than like a Chiron reading, only because
Okay.
like you can get so deep with Chiron that like
Mm.
a birth chart reading is really just kind of like an overview of your personality and like just things that you should know, or just traits that you have, like strong suits and weak points, just regular like basic identity stuff. So it'd be like a character development moment. Like if we
Mhm.
were creating a novel, this is what this character is like, and this is what makes them mad, and
I
this is how they
gotcha.
respond
Yeah,
in relationships.
absolutely.
And so that's a birth chart reading. If we're doing a Chiron reading, which obviously is like part of this program that I run, if we do a Chiron reading, it's definitely about like where Chiron is in your chart, what planets it's interacting with, and what story that creates for you
Mm.
in your head. Like what was your childhood experience like, and like what self-concept did that create, and like personal belief systems did that create. And you can see a lot of stuff in a birth chart. When I'm just looking at a regular birth chart, I'm not necessarily going straight to the Chiron point, because if you do that, then there's a whole nother box of worms that you open up, and it takes a long time to really like dive in and get correct with it. But if you do a Chiron reading, you can find out, for example, like what your relationship with your father was, what your relationship with your mother was, like if you had
Wow.
potentially if you had like a learning disability and that created something, or like a speech
Mm.
impediment, or perhaps you saw a really like a marriage dissolve in front of your eyes, and that's what your relationship with your parents was like. Or perhaps you felt totally overlooked and like invisible in school, or maybe you were bullied. Like you could see all of
Yeah.
this in a birth chart.
Wow.
um and for example, I just like a pull up a random example, but like I had one of these ladies who had a really good experience, and I should share that because I never shared an experience. I just realized, but anyway, she had a good one. Anyway, she pulled up next time we met. She pulled up her husband, or her ex-husband, now her husband, I don't know. Pulled up his chart, and I was like, oh, it looks like he was exposed to some sexual inconsistencies, or like some things that he should not have been exposed to as a child. Like he was placed in it, he couldn't go anywhere, and he saw a lot, like it was very prevalent in his childhood. And she's like, oh yeah, his dad, he's from Ecuador or something, and his dad owned a strip club, and he was there, he remembers hiding under the bar, and like there's ladies dancing all over the place, and that definitely impaired some sort of understanding of like women and sexuality,
Sure.
and
Mhm.
what his place is in that. So
Yeah.
so yeah, you can find
Interesting.
out a lot of stuff like
Wow.
like abuse and addiction,
Uh-huh.
generational trauma. We can find out all sorts of things.
And then what are your tools? Like if you find out if somebody does have an addiction, let's just say for an example, What are your tools that you then use to help them change that?
So I feel like a lot of the people that come to me have done some amount of healing already. So if they
Hmm.
have experienced an addiction, they will typically come to me after that's over. I've yet to receive anybody who has experienced who was like
Where it's like
in the
in it.
midst of a crisis. Yeah.
Uh-huh. This
Um,
is more evolved. Like this is truly advanced work.
yeah, I think anybody can benefit from this for sure, but I
Hmm.
feel like you attract the people that are meant for you, like the client
Sure.
base that is right for you. And I feel like the people that I attract or the clients that I attract are just on like a path, they're like on a healing
Yes.
journey and
Yeah.
they're like in step 5 or something of that journey and they don't know where to go next, but they know that they are committed, and they're very like highly heady, like really kind of intelligent. They want to learn, they're interested. So I attract a lot of those people, just kind of like
Hmm.
me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying like us as well,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Yeah.
this is really
Yeah.
cool. Really, really cool.
Very interesting.
I think
So
Yeah.
you
I
said
hope I
some of the
answered your
results.
question.
No, yes,
I don't
you
even
did.
remember the question at this point.
It's okay. And one of the people that you had mentioned too, that you said that we were talking about like the benefits or some of the outcomes that you've seen with this work. And you had started to talk about one of the ladies had experienced, what if I think you were about to tell us like some of the things that they might have experienced as a result of implementing some of the work that you do in this modules or in the
Yeah.
course.
I'll share like 2 quick ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the ladies, this is a quick and easy one, but she was very standoffish at first. She was like, her childhood, she felt like she came off as mean, and that people thought she was mean, but she was really just kind of closed off, and she like it was
Hmm.
super sweet and adorable. So she started off like really quiet, and I'm like, she hates me, but we'll continue. She didn't name me at all. Anyway, the very end, she was like talking. She was always contributing. She's like, I'll share, and I'm like, thanks, Yvette. Like, so
Wow.
cute.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, she did share something that she hadn't shared with anybody except her husband at some point. So that was really cool to see her like open up
Okay.
and realize some of her triggers and her patterns that she hadn't thought about before. And that was kind of her review of the whole experience. Another lady, she came in and um, she was not dealing with anything in particular, but she wanted to understand more about her fears of motherhood. Like that was kind of like an underneath thing. She was like, "Yeah, I've worked a lot on all this stuff." She had gone through a bunch of things and had been through therapy and all that, all the things. But at the end, she realized that she had some held resentment toward her own mother for not standing up for her children against her father. And so, because of that, she carried some of that with her into motherhood, like that she might be that way or that she just doesn't want to put children in that situation. And so, anyway, the point is, she and her husband ended up breaking up. But after the course or after the program, she came back and was like, actually, I realized that it was kind of me that I was holding on to some things that I forgot or like didn't really think about before. And now he and I are working things out.
Oh, that's
And they
wonderful.
have kids together, obviously. So like that's
Yeah.
really sweet to see.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
That thinking you're a bad, wrong, awful person, unkind, mad. I actually think that's a really common trait, especially around this crowd. Maybe people into personal development. I call them humanoids, by the way. But I find that this crowd is, very much, they often think not just that they're wrong, but also that they're bad and they're mean, like internally in their essence.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts
Um,
around that? Have you seen that
I
in
do.
charts? You do? Okay, great.
I do. So we work a lot with obviously we work a lot with shame. And so the
Hmm.
top shame lady out there is Brene Brown. And
Hmm.
you should look into her if you haven't.
Yes.
Anyway, she explains shame like this. Everybody has shame, but it's different from something like guilt. And she says guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad in some way.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So we
Yep.
all have this I am bad or I am wrong
Hmm.
or something about me is broken or not right,
Mhm.
in some aspect, and we can see that in the chart. But everyone
Huh.
feels it in a different way, in a different space, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it seems almost like once you identify that and you have awareness on it, then the person does have more choice around changing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you make
We
yourself
have so
wrong
much
for
power.
having it.
No, yeah,
Like, I'm
it's
so shameful.
part of the step to do like a program like mine, or to go into therapy, whatever it is the acknowledgement that we want to change something about ourselves, that something about the way that we think about ourselves is detrimental, not wrong,
Yeah,
just not helping.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
um yeah, and so when you take that step, that's the, you know, like they say, when you have an addiction or something, the first step is
Mhm.
acknowledgement, that there's something wrong. And so that's kind of when you get to the second step, which is signing up for something. I feel like you're already in that headspace to
Mhm.
start learning and getting ready and, you know, making changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a big change already,
Yes.
to sign up for something.
Yes. And to even be sitting here is
Yeah,
listening to this
100%.
call is
Yeah.
a change, and already, acknowledgement that, I want something better, or I want to be involved or know more about myself and ways in which to heal.
What are your
Yeah, and I
thoughts
love
about?
that for people.
Yeah.
I love helping people who want to help themselves, you know,
Me
and that's
too.
um it's just awesome to see them on their journey and develop over right in front of you, you know.
Yeah. So then does the chart change if they change their shame patterns? Because isn't
I
that
know.
isn't that our inner critic? Like, how does that work?
I know. It's like I almost
Um
want to go grab my stuff off my chart. Like, so weird.
Trash. All inner
no,
critic
no,
stuff.
it's part of
And then I
you.
have to remember that it's already there.
Well, you
Like,
have to
I'm
remember,
stuck in
like,
it.
if you go back to the story, the centaur, he's not going to be able to change the fact that he was wounded,
Wounded.
right.
but he can change how he looks at the wound, you
Yes.
know, or how he can
Yes.
use it to help better his life in some way. And so
Yes.
that's the part of the chart. We're all so different, and every chart is
Mm-hmm.
so different. Everyone, even if you have like Chiron and Aries, and the other person has Chiron and Aries, which, by the way, Chiron lasts in Aries for 8 years, and they last
Mm-hmm.
in different, um, has, sorry, based on its orbit pattern, it actually spends a different amount of time in each sign. So
Mm-hmm.
Aries is the longest time it spends in a sign. But even if you have Chiron and Aries, someone else has Chiron and Aries, it's going to be totally different from how that person perceives or
It's so
feels that
crazy.
energy,
Uh-huh.
based on lots of different aspects. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool,
It is
that
super
everyone is
cool.
so different.
What?
Yeah.
But the whole point is to acknowledge, accept, and then empower from there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, one of the things I had that was kind of a profound moment when I was doing this course called Clear the Noise was, who would I actually be if I had no inner critic?
Yeah.
Me, right? I mean, because shame is an inner critic. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these things that we're talking about are the inner narrative. I was going to an event like 2 hours late on Saturday, and I was already making up a story if they were kind of like looked at me a certain way, like, why are you so late?
Mm-hmm.
No one
You
cared.
Nobody cares, right? But it was like, what is it inside of me that wants to make up this like internal narrative on, why I'm late for this like incredible event kind of thing, right? Um,
Right.
it makes me like go, who would I be if I had no narratives, no critic? I really would just be a very congruent being in a body. And it
Right.
makes me wonder, like, so, I mean, it seems that the Chiron really understands like all that inner narrative, all that inner critic, all that other gunk that we carry along with us. But, there aren't any beings in this world that seem to, very, very few, have nothing, no inner narrative. Like the frontal lobe of our brain causes us to have narrative always.
Part of that good
And
old
I just,
that's
oh,
that's
the
why I
journey,
brought in
the
the
human journey.
neuroscience.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Well,
I
I
mean,
think
because like
so.
Chiron shows the narrative,
Uh-huh.
and then it's like, what do you do from there? That was part of the reason
Uh-huh.
how, like, why it developed the way it did, this program, because I it comes with this like giant Chiron course, and like that's a go at your own pace kind of thing. And I'm like,
Hmm.
cool. So I'm gonna give them a reading, and then like they're gonna learn about Chiron, and then basically we're gonna trauma dump everything on them. And then what, you know, like there's that's why the workshops came into play too, because I was like, what, you need like some path forward. Like you can't just leave them with that. So
Yeah,
the
right.
workshops ended up being like, okay, since I work like that, I'm like, what is it about like the human
Yes.
nature, human like condition that gets us stuck in ruts like that? And immediately I'm going to the brain, which I was already fascinated with to
Mhm.
begin with, and psychology. And so that's kind of how we take the steps to go forward.
Wow.
But the brain
That's
is
so
so
cool that,
powerful. Like it's
yeah.
crazy how powerful it is. And for example, I don't know if you knew this, but uh, imagining something and remembering something fires the same neural pathways
Mhm.
in your brain. So if you are like whether or not you have
Oh,
experienced it,
yes.
you can live it in your body as if you have. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's one step outside of like that narrative. You know, I'm not this way. I am
Yes.
this way. Or what would happen if I actually like got a TED talk like
Hmm.
speech or something, and what would it feel like to stand up on there? If you're imagining it, you are actually living it in your body and creating, you know, space for neural pathways to create,
Yeah,
which
that's
There's
are always,
empowering.
there's also
yeah.
a study that 50% of every story that somebody tells you from their past is not correct. It's
Right.
I yeah, it's not all the details are correct. It's, elaborated this, that, and the other, which makes you go, okay, so even though you might have experienced it, now it's just landing there in your quote memory or imagination still.
Except the way that you experience it really does show how you receive it, what your insecurities are that you were kind of born with. Everyone's
Mm,
prone to shame in certain ways, and that's what the birth chart tells you. Like, this is where you're prone.
mm,
And
mm.
the way that you remember certain memories will reflect that, I think. So, two siblings would have a different household experience, even if
Yeah.
they had the
Oh,
same parents,
absolutely.
you know,
Right.
and you can see that in the chart too. But
Yeah.
it's fascinating to see
It is
like
fascinating.
the
Oh, yeah, of
like
course that
for
would be
example,
true.
maybe someone felt like their, you know, father was absent or something, and then the other child was like, well, I'm really good friends with the father, so I don't know what you're talking about, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's actually the exact thing for my mom and her sister.
mm,
Her sister loved her father and did so much with her father, and my mom just felt like he ignored her.
yeah,
And he might have. Maybe he just had a
yeah,
favorite, right? But it's so funny that you bring that up because it's exactly what they've told me.
Well, and here's the other
yeah,
thing. If the 50% is only of what you remember is actually true, then the truth is that only 50% of what you might be remembering is only true, right? So we have
Right.
the narrative of what we're saying to each other, saying to our own selves of like, oh, I know this happened and it went down this way. Probably isn't even how it really went down.
Oh,
It's only
yeah,
50%
except
correct.
50% factual, but 100%
The way
correct
that,
in your
in
experience.
their
yeah,
Yeah, like
experience.
which
your
doesn't negate it.
emotions,
Right,
they're always valid. You know, they are always
right,
telling you
right,
something.
right.
Um, so that's fascinating too.
Which
Yeah.
then makes you really feel like you are just in a story and are just in the
Yeah.
Matrix, right? Like you're like, cool, I get to make all this shit up.
You might as well just live life at this point. Just live it the way you want it.
Well, this is fascinating. I really, so I really feel like there's so many healers out there that do feel wounded or constantly in shame, and that this would possibly be the key and the doorway to really understanding it in a deeper level and a level that they've never explored before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
A lot of I feel like a lot of people who gravitate toward specifically toward like Chiron work have something special that they can offer other people, like
Mhm.
something
Yes.
that they're interested in healing in general. I've had a couple of healers or like spiritual activists, you know, like those kind of people, or maybe therapists come through the program too. And they've even asked if there's like a certification that just
Nice.
like to put in their toolbox, which
Yes.
there is starting this next round.
Oh,
But
great.
yeah, I was
Very
like, you know what,
cool.
you're right. It's probably, this is so different, abstract, niche, and like
Yes.
something that's not on the market that I feel like I
Yes.
should be offering a little bit
Definitely
more
that. Yeah.
of a
Yeah. I
substantial
love
thing.
that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Macy, I know you
So,
also do tarot.
yeah,
How does that integrate with Chiron?
you know, I haven't done a lot of integration. I did do one workshop like a while ago on tarot and Chiron. Um, but it was more about like, you know, certain cards we gravitate toward. And what does that say about like the narrative within?
Mhm.
Um, I love this exercise. I do this exercise with people, for example, who don't know tarot but like want a reading, but they don't have a question. I'm like, okay. So I just give them my deck and I'm like, pick out 5 of your favorites and then 5 of your least favorites. You don't know what it means and you don't have to, but like just based on the colors and the energy and how it feels when you look at it, like what are your 5 favorites? What are your 5 least favorites? The
Nice.
5 favorites tend to represent things that we are proud of within ourselves, like certain traits that we love about ourselves. And then the 5 least favorites tend to represent like where we feel we lack. So some Chiron based
Mhm.
narratives going on, which
Oh,
is crazy.
neat.
Yeah.
Is that similar to integration of shadow, what Debbie Ford used to call shadow work? And is that similar where we would integrate some of those shadow selves of, some parts of ourselves that we may not necessarily feel so inclined to love?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, or
So
thoughts?
the question is,
Is
do we
this
have shadow sides?
That'll work.
What's the question? Sorry.
It is.
is this work more in a part of, like, so Debbie Ford said that one of the things that we have is of course having a shadow side, right? So the
Yeah.
having that part of ourselves that we might not necessarily want to show to the world, and that, and by integrating those parts of ourselves and really bringing them into ourselves, that we can become more of the whole human. And
Yeah.
this work sounds to me similar, but I was just wondering, what your thoughts might be about that.
100%.
Okay.
It's very similar. We do a lot of shadow work. I mean,
Okay.
I just don't
Call it
call it
like
Call
that.
shadow
it
work, but
shadow.
it
Right.
is essentially shadow work because you're going, you know, into depths, into places that you don't really want to remember. Like there's a part in the program where we talk about like something that you did as an adult that you feel shame for. Everyone's done something they don't want to
Sure.
repeat. You know, they're like, God, I
Yeah.
can't believe I did that. Even still to this day, I still hold some like regret. But
Yep.
like in some way, we might be able to tie that back, you know, to some thing that you're trying to fulfill that you hadn't realized yet. So, but I have a quote. This reminded me
Ah,
of this
Love
quote that
this.
I love um, about the shadow and just like being the whole person. And it's by Carl Jung. But
okay.
he says, how can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole.
Oh,
Wow.
I love that. It's like, because you can't
Yes.
be substantial. You can't be like
Yeah.
more than what you pretend to be. You know what I mean? Like you, the only way to be forceful and the only way to be substantial is to embrace both sides.
I think
I like that.
the people that resist that they have a shadow or have shame or like and they
Are
just I
lying.
call that a spiritual bypass, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I mean, those have got to be the most challenging people because it's like, come on, they're like, nope, I'm good, I'm fine, and they just kind of boogie on in life. And then something will eventually wake them up, it seems, because they are just so won't look at it, would rather stay busy and not
Hmm.
actually go within at all. I that those people kind of fascinate me to go, really? You don't think you have any shame anywhere in your life ever?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those people are lying. So
Yeah.
everyone has it.
But it's a part of us, and it's not a wrongness. In fact, in your work, it's truly a strongness. And that's what's really cool about it, because then somebody doesn't have to deny any bits and pieces of them, and they can receive themselves entirely. I mean, that's got to be the value of this work, and it's profound. I mean, the more I think about it, you don't have to say
The
what
more you think about it,
it's
the
like
more
so
you're like,
freaking cool.
I want to join. I want to do this. Yeah, it's really like what you described right there is living authentically. That's like the
Mhm.
ultimate goal, is to be able to live with authenticity, to step into yourself truly, wholly,
Uh-huh.
confidently, you know.
Oh, we've got some like really good little marks. It says, Valentina says, acceptance of me, exclamation point. And Dana says, accepting all parts and all pieces. Like just
Yes.
the thought of that feels empowering. Just the whole, just the simple concept of that. Because I do feel like I've done a lot of work, but I also feel like sometimes I can be guilty of a little bit of spiritual bypass.
Just the fact that you're guilty of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm like, oh no, I'm great, I'm good. I'm like, oh, life is great. And then all of a sudden I turn around and like I'm getting hit in the head with the 2 by, like, you know,
Yeah. But it is a constant work, you know.
Sure.
I think about that too. I've done so much work on myself. And
Yeah.
And in doing this program, I do these exercises with the group too. And I've done like some of them multiple times.
Yes.
And I still find out parts of me, or like to help me complete my own story. But there are definitely moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty cool. And then I run into something where I'm like,
Mhm.
I have an issue again, you know,
Yeah.
to take a step back. I just know how to better handle them.
Yes.
Even if I still feel the same on
Yeah.
the inside, I know how to approach it with authenticity and with health in mind. So
Absolutely. It's funny, I did this line of work where these things that we're talking about, blame, shame, regret, and guilt, they all went together in a category. They were called distractor implants.
That's
And
exactly what I was thinking about.
yeah, and I mean, they are, quote, distractors from really truly being a coherent being, but we aren't a coherent being. So, I mean, unless we've done a ton of work to become that. So it would make perfect sense that, you know, we would have to like really see all of this to become all of us. I just think it's kind of
yeah.
cool to look
And
at it that way.
if you're not embracing the shame, the guilt, the whatever, then
Mhm.
you're bringing on other
Yeah. Yeah, there's a layer on top of it, right?
then you're bringing in other traits and patterns that are just to cover up, you know, like
Mhm.
the people pleasing and depression and anxiety. Like
I
all of
know.
those things are layers to avoid the
Blame,
issue. So
shame,
if you're not
regret,
going
and
to face the
guilt.
issues, then you're going to have other issues, and you're going to think it's my anxiety. No,
Mhm.
it's your, you know, your avoidance of the real problem.
Wow.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I love how you said that because, you know, in fact, I've even talked to people and like, okay, well, you have like this layer, you know, like say they, you know, say they're struggling with money, right? But
Mhm.
because, you know, and then they kind of know why they're struggling with money. Well, then what's the narratives? What are the points of view around that? And were those created? And it's like just kind of this like, you know, layer upon layer upon layer,
Yeah.
or it
I
could
mean, it's
just be
like,
blame, shame,
Well,
regret, guilt.
here, let me go to this comment, and I think this will help us.
Mhm.
So Valentina says, "Where does it end? Will it ever end? Will the work ever end? I'm tired." Laugh out loud.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's maybe
And
where
I
the
think,
conversation should be,
yeah.
right? It's like, okay, great. Yeah. Yes, it can.
How do you approach that?
I think that it's a lifelong work,
Sure.
but I do think that it gets easier when you have tools in place to help you. So,
Yes.
part of this program, or like what I do, is just helping people find the tools
Yeah.
help themselves.
Because either way, it's going to perpetuate. So might
Yeah.
as well live with your best, your best tools, your best guidance, the eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Knowing going in.
I don't feel that
Yeah.
I'm wounded or suffering every day, but I know there's that some of that's still there kind of thing, right? I'm like not in
Yeah.
denial of it. And I think that's the point of it is get to the raw essence of it. And I think that what
Right.
Chiron work really does is get you to the raw essence of it. And so you can say, great, I receive that. I see it. I have awareness on it. And I'm going to make active choices and change my brain and my neurosynapses around this.
Right.
That's how I see
That's kind
it.
of why I like when people are like, oh, it's my anxiety. I'm like, okay, but like, what is your anxiety telling you about the deeper root? Because
Mhm.
for example, you're not just anxious all the time. Like, when do you get anxious? What triggers it? And like, how is that similar or different to other moments in your life previously, when you were growing up? What is the thing the shoes that you're trying to fill that you think are too large? And
Mhm.
that's kind of where does that stem? And
Mhm.
so I think having the tools, having the understanding of what it is, and then having the tools to give yourself better responses when it does happen, um, that's where the change happens. And then it becomes a little more easy, like a little easier to go through
Yeah. Well, I
life.
know we've talked about the program. I just want to bring it up so that we can share it in detail.
Yeah,
And
I
because I
I feel like I've brought it up a lot. This
well, I
current,
think
but we were
I
just
mean,
talking about Chiron, and I'm like, yeah, this is how I handle
Yeah.
it.
yeah, this is your
Um,
core work. I mean, it's
Not many people are doing this type of work. So, I mean,
Mhm.
finding the ins and outs of how you're utilizing this work and what you're doing
Yeah.
with it is the core essence of this conversation. So, yes, we brought it up a lot, but because not like you said yourself, not many people are going in, and it's so niche and it's so different that there was no other way around it.
So niche. It's so niche.
yeah,
I mean,
to
this
talk
is
about how
really,
it really works.
really
Yeah.
specific work. And to be honest, I mean, you pay what, $250 just for a PT or a massage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to get like to the root of shame that could change you for your entire life is quite a profound thing. And it sounds like you can get to the message of it in just this one-on-one session that you also are offering with the package.
For the
yeah.
first 5 people, so I might
Yeah,
add.
and we will remove all of this if you,
Once we book up the 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
once we book up
Yeah.
the
So
5.
if you feel called, definitely choose
Jump
it.
on
Yeah.
this because I think it's a really interesting way to look at life.
Do you have the link to put in the chat, or should I just put it in
I
the?
can put it in chat as well.
Actually, I just did it.
Oh,
Just
okay, cool.
Nice.
I just wrote it out. So anyway, it's in the chat. But yeah, so this is the entirety of the program includes like a group aspect, a support aspect, then the Chiron course and the workshops. This offer is like at least a $500 value offer,
Yeah.
but it is just the Chiron course and the one-on-one Chiron reading for
Wow.
people who sign up.
Mhm.
But within the course, you have like 25 plus videos, like it says right there, on literally everything you could ever want to learn about Chiron and reading a birth chart. Like, again, I told you I
Nice.
am thorough. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
information. It'll take you a minute. And then all sorts of downloadable guides and resources, like a
30.
reading list.
Wow.
And then I offer office hours every Wednesday, just for like everybody in the program, just in case like
Mhm.
people have questions. And yeah, and there you go. And then you have
Yeah,
access to it for whenever.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So just to go through, it's like Chiron reading if you're among the first 5, and we will remove that.
That's one-on-one with
If you don't
me.
see that on the sales page, then that means you are number 6 or more. And then the course alone is more than 25 videos. And as you can see from this conversation, my guess is they are really in depth from the knowledge of Maisy. There's also PDFs, there's resources, there's guides, and then she has weekly office hours. So you can always get your questions answered. And then, of course, there's continued
Yes,
education
article posts.
with regular article posts. It starts in January, so you guys have a little bit of time to look at this. But if this calls you, I really think that you're being called to this. But this is cool.
And then you
Really,
have
really cool.
lifetime access. And of course, if you're being called, then definitely jump on it, because although it starts on the 27th, the people that might sign up, and you might be number 6. So you definitely want to be 1 through 5, because that one-on-one Chiron reading sounds amazing. It sounds like something like, I really want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. In
It
fact,
just
I might
sounds,
do this.
yeah. Just because of the curiosity. I mean,
Yeah.
just the sheer fact of like really, I
Because
mean,
you get to something that I may have never even looked at.
exactly.
Like I'm just kind of
And they're
spiritually bypassing it or something.
right. Dana says, is there a payment option?
Oh, okay. Yes, we can make one. Or no, it goes through
It goes
Macy's
through
site.
Macy, so that
We can ask her.
so our
Uh-huh.
people are used to having a 2-pay option. The first payment would be half, and the second payment is 30 days later, or I guess before the 27th, or before they do their first whatnot. But completely up to you. No, not on the spot, but we'll let you know if there is a payment option. We'll write you
Yeah, I
in.
mean, we can, what I was thinking immediately is if you want to do that, you could pay the half of 47, whatever that is, to a PayPal. I don't know if people have PayPal.
Yeah, well,
I my PayPal email, and if I just get, like 123 or whatever it is, then we can stay in contact and I'll get them all signed up, and then we can figure out the next payment.
great.
So I'll just put that in the chat.
Great.
Just
Awesome.
my
great.
PayPal email is contact@tarotbymaisy.com.
And they can just contact you there too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they could, or you could
Yeah,
just
so
email
if
me,
you've
like,
got
figure it out.
questions
Yeah.
and if you feel a little hesitant, maybe email first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm
Oh,
very friendly.
Yeah.
we can tell. I was going to say that to the audience too. I was like, because you could tell she seemed very friendly and definitely
Just-
there to answer questions.
Just so you guys know, so I found Macy before I was even working with Leonka, and I just had a vibe, I just saw some Instagrams and went to her site. And I was
She
like,
said,
I just
really
just
want
have
to
a
talk to
vibe.
her.
I just have a vibe for this girl, and I don't really know exactly why. So I kept her name on the list, but and she said later in the year, and I thought, okay, well then later in the year, and then and then you were on our last summit, and you were just so
Yeah.
good, and I feel like there's some conversations I can go forever, and there's no stopping me. But with this, I was like new information, and I love new information. I love learning so much. So it's like, yes. So I just felt like there is something resonant. Now I really feel like I get it. Even in our first interview, I feel like I still felt so incomplete on like, okay, I get Chiron, I get astrology, I get that can help us, but how does it help us? And then I really feel like we've answered that question. So I feel fulfilled.
Good. I'm glad. And I'm glad I was helpful and that you were drawn to me. It is kind of funny because you reached out and it just like wasn't happening. And then like I feel like it just happened at the right time. So
Absolutely.
You're so amazing. And the more we talked to you and about you, it just is like interesting. This is really, really interesting work. I'm really wondering how my work's going to evolve with astrology and numerology and tarot in the future, because it is like something that I'm just like, I'm just putting fingers in right now because I'm a little more into the more pragmatic, the science, the brain and how it works and the neuro. And so we'll see how, and it just seemed a little too out there for me, even though I'm not out there, totally out there.
This is the show of
galactic channels of woo. So
but I love how
well, I'm glad I could open your eyes.
Yes, thank you.
More.
Great. So You guys, thank you. And if you guys have questions or need anything, you can always contact us at team@Haute Hustle.
That's right.
As well.
And the special offer for Maisy will also, if you're listening on the replay, will be in the description below. So we put it in the chat, but it will also be in the description below, or it will be in the newsletter. If you're not receiving the newsletter, look in your junk mail. Maybe you've gotten our messages sent there, and just pop that over to the inbox. That will ensure that you're getting our messages. And then also, if you're not, you can always just re-sign up. We've got new fun gifts for 2025 at hautehustle.com. And that will get you the newsletter with Maisy's beautiful face and her special offer button right there, right next to it. So definitely, and if nothing else, if you're still not getting anything and you still want information, you can always message me at team@hautehustle.com.
Yep. Perfect. Maisy,
Awesome.
thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for having me. And I look forward to connecting with all of you.
Yes.
If anybody
Yeah.
wants to connect.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I mean, a single reading probably is right at $250. And it's so great. I'm just so grateful that you
Yeah.
produced this course for us. And I feel like it's
Hopefully we get much more people educated
yeah.
and out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, sharing more goodness about Chiron.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me on, and we'll keep in touch, and everybody else.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see you back in 2025.
Yeah, we'll love that.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Guys, just a couple announcements before we wrap. Today is lounge day.
Yay. Lots of people say it's 11/11 and 1/11 and all the numbers. Of course,
you ever want to jump on the lounge, you can find it at lounge.hautehustle.com. And what other, guys, please look at Tarek's interview and offer. It was absolutely phenomenal.
And he gives us an amazing, what was it?
Yeah, it's a
95%?
wealth course. It's very different from other wealth courses, and it is 90% off, $888 down to $97.
Super limited offer.
Yeah,
Very, very generous of
only going to
him.
be up for 3 weeks. So if you are called to, learn and really seek around money, then we've got that offer out. And we had Teresa on last week as well. That was like, I was like a puddle at the end and couldn't even talk about her offer. But
she worked with Dragon Energy, and it was she did an activation for us. If you have missed it, definitely check out that replay where and it's kind of toward the end. But if you nothing else, at least check out the replay where she does this dragon activation. Woo wee! Where I could hear her in my head days after.
I know.
It was amazing.
I went back to re-listen to
Did you?
see if I got the same vibe. I was just like, wow, this just feels like letting go. It was just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot about surrender.
A lot.
Yes.
A lot. So if you are interested in surrender, then there's that as well. And then on Thursday, we have Janet Dewar coming.
Yeah.
Who I have actually personally connected with, and she has helped me a little bit with my moving forward movements. And I'm excited to see her on Thursday. So with that said, I'm going to call this a wrap, and we'll see you loungies and houties in the lounge.
Have a great one, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.